Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, friends, it is your old buddy Luke Clayton, and our good friend Larry Weissoon is standing by. Larry's been with us. This year is the 18th year. Every week, I don't think we've missed 1 week. Larry, thank you for being here, buddy.
Luke, this is one of my favorite things to do every week, and we've been so very fortunate over the years. You and I both have in so many different ways with being able to spend time in the outdoors, and particularly some of the people that help bring us to the outdoors and bring us to the people who are out there listening to us. Those include DSC, which is Conservation Education Hunter Advocacy, best hunting organization, best conservation organization in the world. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Stealth Vision, made there in Crockett, Texas, are put together there. VINEYARDMAX, which does so many different things when it comes to attractants, but also feeders. And of course, they sell my knives as well too. And then Taurus, I shoot a fair amount of Taurus handguns and absolutely love it. And I've got a bunch of stuff coming up. You know, we are in February. Wintertime is still here. There's a lot of things coming up here in March as well too. And I think you need to mention one of the first ones going to happen in March.
Yeah, we will do that, Larry. And folks, I want to invite you to come to Greenville, Texas. Now, I know all our fine radio stations, people, y'all are hearing this first, but this becomes a podcast, and people way out of Texas are listening to the podcast. But it's our 6th annual spring rendezvous, we call it. It's in Greenville, Texas, Hunt County, and Greenville, Texas is on Interstate 30, about an hour east of Dallas. That's where we're at. But it's at the Top Rail Cowboy Church. It's been there for several years. It started down in downtown Greenville, but now it's a nice, I think it's like around 15 acres. It's awesome. Larry and I are going to tell you a little bit about the spring rendezvous and tell you kind of what to expect. But we want to invite you, if you're in North Texas on March the 1st, come out there, and I promise you'll have a good time. But Larry, you have been with me on every one except maybe the very first one. I forget. It's been a while, but we have an absolute ball out there, don't we? You know?
We truly do, and I was on a hunt over the first one, so couldn't be there. And Luke's being kind of modest, folks. It's actually the Luke Clayton's outdoor rendezvous. Luke is one kind of got that thing started, and of course he's one of those stalwarts when it comes to anything having to do in that part of Texas. The beauty of all this is even if we have any really bad weather, we've got a covered arena right there that we can move into. There's always live music. There's always great things to eat. There's usually 3 or 4 chuck wagons and there's all kinds of different types of food, and vendors can come in for basically no charge. We just ask they may leave a little of a donation to the Cowboy Church there. But this year too, Luke, I know after visiting with you and Roger Folds, who I deal with a lot through Dallas Safari Club, and Roger's one of these guys that is a very consummate chili cooker.
Yeah, he is.
And he's won the Terlingua chili cook-off and a whole bunch of others. But there's going to be a chili cook-off there this year as well, too. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of cool weather. He's going to have an opportunity to taste all those, I'm sure, after the competition. And then I always suggest that people leave. No, I take that back. I was going to tell people to not eat so much so that they could have some of your cobbler. But as I'm thinking about it, I want those folks, everybody, to eat so blooming much that they can't eat any of the cobbler so I can have more.
It's easy to do, and it's pretty tasty. It is.
It is.
This year I'm making 2 gallons. So it sounds like a lot of cobbler, but it can be consumed. Bill Carey, our friend with Striper Express, gave me it's called a Magnalite. Aluminum. You've seen these aluminum roasters.
I remember when that happened. Yes, sir. You're right.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a Dutch oven, a cast iron skillet type thing, but made out of aluminum.
Yeah, and you bet Cajun people are crazy about them. They're big down in Cajun country. But I'm gonna make the cobbler in that this year. Or make it in the Dutch kettle at home and then put it over into there maybe, but that's going to hold a bunch. It'll hold a couple of gallons of it, I know. And
well, you got me covered.
That's right. Yep. And then we Bill Carey, our great friend with Striper Express up on Texoma, he's called me, Luke, are we going to fry fish? So I said, look, the fish frying is he's all about it. And so Bill and my nephew Billy Kilpatrick, they're taking on the fish. I've got a bunch of catfish in the freezer and fresh catfish, and so I think they'll fry some catfish. That's just for the folks around our campfire that might get hungry. Tell you what else I'm going to do is I'm going to smoke about 3 pork shoulders and cook them real slow and long, and mix some barbecue sauce, and I doctor them up with seasoning and put them out there with just some light bread and a little container of barbecue sauce. So, it'll be around we will have our own campfire, Larry and I, and Jeff Rice, and who's everybody knows, a lot of people know Jeff now, and Jeff is the kingpin of our video show, A Sportsman's Life. So Jeff's gonna film this, and it'll become one of our segments. Probably one of our shows, A Sportsman's Life, on Carbon TV and also on YouTube. You can watch them right now. So that food will be on hand. I'm trying to think. A big old blue enamel coffee pot full of hot coffee will be sitting on the fire like always. And oh yes, and then I'm going to reserve about a bunch of those Kuby's smoked fajita links, they're called, and I'm going to have them in a big pot. They're already cooked, and boy are they good. But I'm going to put a little water in that Dutch kettle and put a lid on it, where they'll just kind of stay steamed, stay warm, and then people can just, it's pretty simple. Grab a piece of light bread, slap one of those links on it, and keep stepping.
Eat a bunch so you don't have room for cobbler.
Eat all that other, and the chili cook-off is. I want to say thanks to Pastor Charlie Nasser. Now Charlie has been so helpful through the years, but this year he's passed the torch to his outdoor ministry guys, Mr. James Carr and Mr. Jarvis, I believe. I know James, but they're heading this up. So they're the people to contact for booth space and all that. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and give the phone number. People call me a lot. Luke, how do we sign up for a booth space? All you have to do is just let James Carr know that you want a booth, and then you can leave a little donation or whatever you want to do. There's no set fee or anything. Most people give a few bucks to the church for the space. You can call James Carr at 903-426-2045. Again, 903-426-2045. James he'll just put your name down and know that you're coming. Larry, it's not like there's a marked off 12 by 12 booth. I mean, we're on 14 acres, so a booth can be pull your pickup up and let the tailgate down, put your sign up, and if you're a hunting outfitter or a guide or whatever, or sell outdoor products or anything else, you're in business, aren't you? Really,
You really are. Excuse me. And I'll tell you, we've had such great crowds the last few years. We've been very fortunate on the weather. But again, going back to where even if it were to be on the rainy or snowy or whatever, these days you can't tell. We've got that huge covered arena as well, too, right there at the church that can be utilized. And we'll be under there if we need to. But it's a fun time. It's an opportunity to come out and just kind of visit. And I'll tell you what, we've had everything from 6-week-old babies to even folks that are a little older than I am.
And me and you, exactly. Yeah,
and have a great time visiting. So really and there's other places you can go to Luke's website and learn more about it, catfishradio.org. I'm sure there'll be some posters there, and then, of course, on Facebook we'll keep putting them up and letting people know a little bit more as we get a little bit closer to everything as well too. But beyond all that, we've got that coming up. We'll talk a little bit about my Mexico Coues deer hunt here in the future. Same thing with the hunt that you and Jeff and I did out in West Texas. But here this coming week, I'm going to be up on the Choctaw Hunting Lodge with Dusty and Nicole Vickery. And my purpose for being there is back last year, they donated a buffalo hunt to the DSC Foundation gala and banquet that we had. And the gentleman by the name of Mr. Royce Ferris bought that. And so I'm going to be up there kind of helping host that thing and helping guide and maybe tell a few hunting stories. And I'm going to try to see if I can talk Royce and let me have maybe a couple of pounds of that buffalo as well too. So you know how good buffalo meat is.
Oh boy, I do for a fact. Well, maybe he can. There's an ample supply of when he harvests one of those big buffalo, especially one of those big bulls or a cow, whatever. But there'll be plenty of good buffalo bison meat. That is honestly one of my favorite meats. It's a lot like beef, except it does have a different flavor, but I actually absolutely love buffalo,
It is. And of course, we're so thankful to Dusty and the guys, particularly all involved with that particular organization, if you will. And then, too, don't forget about I think on, February 28th or something like that, there's going to be a drawing for the 2 hunts they're benefiting that they're selling 2 hunts on the Choctaw, free range, but it's a raffle, and it's all the money is going to go to benefit a young man up there that's going through some really bad medical expenses as well too. So if you get a chance, you might try to look up Dusty Vickery, Vickrey, on Facebook, and there's a spot there that you can learn more about that as well too.
You bet. I had Dusty on, I think last week. He was talking about that, Larry.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good deal. I'm gonna let a kitten out of the bag. What's the old saying? Let a cat out of the bag. That's coming up here. I
actually heard a cat mew just a few seconds
ago.
Look,
my wife, Lisa's cat central around here, so don't be surprised. I've been recording and had a cat jump on my back before. Anyway, Stealth Vision is coming out with their line of thermals. I don't want to say too much, but I know it's going to happen. And some of them I have learned, are the clip-on thermals to hunt to scopes. We'll know more about this later, but I am more than anxious to stick. That makes you still have to collimate the clip-on to the rifle scope, but it's a simple process. It's so easy, but that's going to be coming up, and I want to learn a whole bunch. You and I'll be that'll turn you into a thermal coyote man or whatever too. You can, or hey, how about using them for spotting deer at night for the surveys?
Nah, we're going to use it for a lot of different things. I actually had the opportunity to see the prototype at the DSC convention in Atlanta, and we compared it. We had several people compare it to others, including those that are considerably higher priced. Compared to the Stealth Vision, and the clarity on that Stealth Vision might Oh my God, thermal is unbelievable. So, yes, I think I'm going to be turned into. I've always called coyotes and stuff here in the last bunch of years during the daylight hours. I may try to do a little bit of that at nighttime, and I've got a place down south of where I live. My brother's place has got way too many hogs as well too. So
Awesome. Yep.
we're going to put that to use. Get you down here as well.
That'd be fun, Larry. Well, we are out of time. I thank you so much for being with us, and looking forward to us getting together real soon out there in West Texas, Larry.
Absolutely.
Folks, this segment is made possible by Ultrimatic Feeders. Go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com and check out the most awesome line of game feeders in the world. I've been using these things for 15 years, and I've got one that's been in the woods about 10 or 11 years. I forget exactly how long. Check them out, ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, I want to introduce you to VINEYARDMAX. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weissoon, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, VINEYARDMAX has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, I want to tell you about an awesome camping destination, Wind Point Park on Lake Tawakoni. It's over on the far east side, kind of the northeast side of the lake. It's a pristine park. You can go there and view, I think they estimated a couple of hundred deer on that couple of hundred acres there. Cabins, beautiful RV park, fishing piers, docks. It's got everything you'd want in an outdoor destination. Check them out online at windpointparktx.com. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro, catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, friends, I think all of you know that old Luke likes to hunt hogs, and you've probably ascertained that I like to eat them, cook them and eat them. I've got a good buddy of mine, Jeff Rice. He's been our guest many times. He's one of my best buddies ever. We hunt hogs a lot, and we cook hogs a lot. So I thought it'd be fun and maybe informative this time of year to talk about cooking hogs and give some recipes. Jeff, thank you for being with us, buddy.
Hey, buddy. Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yep. I thought it would be helpful right now to give some recipes or some cooking methods, I guess I should say. Your sweet and sour pork that you told me about here a month or so ago, I've watched you cook it on our TV show, A Sportsman's Life. I tried it. It's every bit as good as it looked when you prepared it on our show. Tell us how you do that, it's pretty simple. I followed your instructions to the letter, and mine turned out good also. So not too hard to do. You really don't need to write anything down like a recipe, I don't think.
Yeah, you're right. You really don't. I mean, it is one heck of a good recipe. And for those listeners out there, vacillating on whether you should try wild pork or not, you need to try it. I'm telling you, it is some of the best eats out there. But yeah, I make this recipe. I've done it several times, and it's super delicious. And really, like you said, you don't have to write anything down. It's just take the pork, take your loin, your back strap, if you will, is what I used. And I put it right on the smoker, and I let it sit there for probably a half hour on good, solid, heavy smoke. You want to put some smoke into that meat, but you're not really cooking it. You're just putting smoke into it. Then simply take it off the smoker, cut it into bite-sized pieces, and then what I do is I dust them in flour. I put them in a bag and just shake them and get flour on them, and then I pan fry them. Okay, so you get them where they're just about cooked, maybe not fully cooked, in a pan with maybe a little bit of butter, and then I take the pieces off the stove. I set them aside. I get another pan. Then I put my stir fry in there. What you do is your peppers and your onions and whatever you like. I like to put little pieces of chunks of pineapple in mine. Mushrooms, perhaps. You can kind of go with what you like, but you stir fry that all up and get those vegetables where they're starting to break down a bit. And then you take your pork, put it back in with the stir fry with your vegetables. And then you take whatever sweet and sour sauce you like. There's a bunch of different kinds you can get. You can buy it at your local grocery store, but pour some in with the meat and the vegetables, and just let her simmer for a little bit, covered until that meat's cooked and your vegetables are broke down perfect. Take it off, and while you're doing all that, get some rice going. I like to get a bowl, put a nice heaping mound of white rice in the bowl, and then put the sweet and sour on top of it and eat it that way. And buddy, let me tell you, I know you've tried it. For those listeners out there, give this a try. I promise you, it is some really good eats.
Yeah, it's so easy too. And then of course for people that maybe some folks have not cooked a lot of wild pork, but one thing on the back strap, that's the meat of a pork chop, really, on either side of the backbone. But remove all the sinew, all of it, right, Jeff? You want it just lean meat.
That's correct. As lean as possible. Get everything off of it. When you cut it into bite-sized pieces, there's no sinew at all in there. It is the meat itself. So yeah, good point.
It's really, really good. And what I did it exactly like you talked about, but I had an extra amount. And then I just blended some of that rice in with the stir fry, and then I had it in a bowl for my next meal, But it seems like all that sweet and sour sauce and all that just kind of permeated into the rice. I like to use jasmine rice, but any rice will work on it, just whatever you like when it comes
Absolutely.
to the
brown rice, white rice, you name it. You can wild rice, anything. Absolutely. And what I found, Luke, is leftovers. The day after I had that for lunch, and even leftovers, it's even better. It's one of those where the night you make it, then you eat it the next day, you're going, oh my God, it's even better.
That's what I hate to admit this, but you know what? I had my other one for a late breakfast. The rest of it, I did. I just heated it. I put it in the microwave and heated it up and literally knocked it out. So, So wild pork, a lot of people, many people through the years have asked me, and they've asked you, Jeff, I know they have, is wild pork, they usually say wild hog meat, wild pork, is it good to eat? And there's only one way I know I've learned to answer that, and you've heard me say it a million times. I'll answer it with another question. I'll say, well, if you were going to go to a livestock auction and buy a hog to eat, what kind of hog would you buy? And that answers the question. They won't buy an old rank boar. Now, not to say you and I both have eaten some loins and some ham meat off of bigger boars, but probably not an old rank boar is not going to be your best wild pork, right?
Absolutely. You're looking for that maybe 125-pound boar or sow. Sow, great. I mean, they're both great. It's just, you get the younger ones and that meat's a little more tender. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't go for the big old boar. I would go for the younger 125 pounders. That's about perfect.
Perfect. From there on down, we've eaten smaller ones.
Yes, sir.
And even I've eaten some bigger hogs, sows especially. I've had old time hog hunters tell me that their best meat from the wild is a big barren sow, and I have to agree. They make big pork chops. I'm talking about maybe a 200-pound sow. Sometimes when they're barren for one reason or another, without pigs, they get heavier. But that's one thing about smaller, younger sows that are breeding age. Those pigs pull them down when they start having bunches of pigs, and a young boar is still the meat is tender, as wild hog's meat goes, it's tender, and they don't have all those pigs pulling them down. So a lot of times they're they're packing a little bit more meat, the younger boars are, Jeff. So that's something to contemplate too.
Absolutely.
And when you and I hunt hogs, it's more or less, we kid each other. It's more or less like going to a meat market. I mean, how many times have we passed up a big old boar standing there, and there'll be a little gilt or a 125-pound sow, and shot that one because we were looking for meat, right? You know.
Oh yeah, we're standing there looking at the animal, and we see pork chops.
That's the truth, Jeff. In keeping with the Asian type dishes, something that I do that's so simple and it's very similar to your stir fry, it just to your sweet and sour, is the basic stir fry. I absolutely love Asian food and stir fries. So I'll just take it could be hound meat. Really, probably it's best if you use the backstrap because it is a little more tender. But I slice it real thin because the ultimate goal is stir fry with vegetables, so you don't want big chunks, but little pieces. I take the time with a real sharp knife and cut up as much as I need, and then I'll put that in a Ziploc bag with a little soy sauce and then some Kikkoman. That's a good brand, and you can find it everywhere. It's just called stir fry sauce. That's the name on the bottle. But there's all kind of, as you mentioned earlier, there's all kind of different brands. But I'll let that marinate 1 hour or 2 days in the refrigerator. It seems to be a little bit better if you can leave it overnight. It takes on that seasoning. And then simply get you I have one of these Lodge woks, a cast iron wok, but a big skillet works just as well. Put a little olive oil down, and then I like to smash up a couple of garlic pods. And if I like it a little spicy, or if you like it spicy, put you a little jalapeno in there, and the garlic, and let all that kind of those flavors infuse in the little the oil there. And then just put the next step is real simple. Dump your little cut up pieces of pork in that skillet and cook them. It won't take 3 minutes on high heat to get that meat done, and it's going to be pretty tender if it's the backstrap, And then you can go to Walmart or anywhere and buy the Asian chopped vegetables. It comes in a bag, or you can just add the vegetables that you like in there with that meat, and then pour as they wilt down, as the vegetables cook down. Pour a little of that stir fry in there and mix it all together, and there again serve it on some white rice, Jeff. I mean, I challenge people to try this and then go to their favorite Asian restaurant and compare. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Oh, you bet it is. There's only one thing missing out of what you were just talking about, and that was the invitation for me to come join you.
Well, we're gonna be with our buddy Larry Weiss soon out in West Texas on a venison procurement. we got to take some deer off of a lease to meet their management program. Why don't we take the ingredients for this? And this works perfectly well with venison too. It doesn't, or we may just take some. We both have plenty of wild pork. Let's cook some of that out there at the camp. What do you say?
I think that's a fantastic idea. That's to me, I mean, that wild pork, it doesn't get any better than that. And I think the only thing that people need to understand is if you're cooking wild pork, especially if you're cooking a whole loin or something like that, you just got to make sure you're cooking it to the appropriate temperature and that kind of thing. But
that's true.
You and I cook a lot of it, so we know that. But that's pretty important to make sure you're cooking your meat thoroughly. But yeah, good plan. I look forward to some maybe some fresh pork or venison while we're at camp.
You bet. Sure. You brought out a good point, Jeff. The FDA, I think I know at 145, they changed the ruling on that 3 or 4 years ago for solid pieces of pork. That's not necessarily wild. Pork is pork. So 145 for like roast or steaks, but ground meat was still 160. Now, if you only cook a pork roast to 145, it's not going to be tender. So when we cook it, it's already probably over 200 degrees, and it's cooked a long time. Larger cuts is what I'm talking about.
Right.
So, I mean, that ruling the government is talking about what's safe. Trichinosis is almost nil in the United States. There's just a handful of cases. Third world countries, it's a factor. Trichinosis is, but you always need to be safe when you're cooking. Really, when you're mountain lion meat, is all of that just about has trichinosis. Bear, it's a very prevalent in bear, but hogs very rare. But you have to be cautious and use the proper, heat it to the proper temperatures, and that's things that you and I know about. But if it's tender, if you cook wild pork to where it's tender, even without checking it with the thermometer, it's going to be it's going to be well above the safety norms. Jeff, we could go on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we talk buffalo strips, like buffalo wings, you can also make that out of pork loin. We're going to talk about that next time. It's makes like a good appetizer, but it's real easy to make. Just think about how you'd make your wings and then use a little strips of pork. That's also very tasty. Thank you very much, Jeff, and I look forward to getting with you. We'll give Mr. Weiss soon some. I already checked with him. He likes Asian food, so on our deer hunt, we may become Asian chefs. You never know.
Sounds like a plan.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at SmokinTex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
And for seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com. Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, folks, deer season, by and large, has come to a close. And what that relates to is all across Texas and all over the country where feeding deer is allowed, which is most of the country. There's deer feeders sitting out there with timers and all that equipment on them, setting thousands of them, especially, just stay with Texas. Thousands of deer feeders out there. What are we going to do next? Mr. Paul Moore with VINEYARDMAX his company makes an awesome line of feeders. A feeder's a feeder to a degree, but the guts of it, I'm talking about the timer and all that, that's the heart of a feeder. Let's talk about things that we might be needing to do, like right now. Paul, I'm sorry to keep our little intro so long, but welcome to our show, and thank you for sharing some knowledge about feeders. That's something you know a lot about.
Well, thank you, Luke. Yes. We started our business here at VINEYARDMAX in 2020 with our deer attractant that you and I have talked about several times on the show. But my son started building deer feeders when he was about 10 years old. And I I've only bought 2 deer feeders myself over the years. Everything we have built ourselves, and it's been a learning process of things that we like and don't like to come up with the products that we have today. And so thank you for having me on the show. This is near and dear to my heart.
You bet you, Paul. The thing is, though, across the state, there are the hunters are at kind of a pivotal point right now. Okay, so the general consensus is about August, people go out, and a lot of people, many people, hunters do this. Their feeder's been sitting out there forever, and they don't feed a little bit every day throughout the year. They just forget their feeders. The deer season's over. I've known a lot of guys that just leave the batteries in there, just no feed or anything, just leave it set until next August. Then, hey, we need to start getting these deer patterned again to these feeders, so they start putting corn in there. They go out there. Well, number one, the battery might be corroded up or whatever. I mean, it's not good to let the batteries run down. There's probably going to be some problems with that. Am I right, Paul, in the fact that good feeder components, and by components I'm talking about the motor that drives that thing, the timer, you and I both use the same. I've known about these timers, the timer and all that for years, but that's the guts of one. There are other things that you do, like no holes in the feeder, no drilled holes and all that, but the timer, that mechanism is key, isn't it?
Yeah, and really, ultimately, the motor, the 12-volt motors that we use, and the timers, the timer, like you said, and the solar panels, we buy all of our components from Ultrimatic Feeders in Hockley, Texas, and they're all very, very high-quality components. Well, the reality of it is those components in and of themselves make up for more than half of the cost of the feeder. Mm-hmm. So it is extremely important to take care of those components. And so I believe you got 2 choices as we're wrapping up deer season. Really 2 choices to really take care of that feeder. First choice is you may want to turn that timer down a little bit. We typically, and on our ranches and the places we hunt, we'll turn it down to 1 second twice a day, and that keeps the deer coming in and the patterning the deer and all of those things. And we do that throughout the year. But we have some feeders that we will, a few feeders that we will totally turn off. And what I do on those is we pull the battery. We make sure that lid is latched down, that there is something to hold that latch shut. Put a little carabiner or something in there, or wire it shut or whatever, because we don't want that lid to pop up and a squirrel get in there and start chewing up the wires. They'll go in there and look for a little bit of corn, and while they're in there, they wreak havoc. So we want that. We want to make sure that lid is on there good. We'll even throw a couple of rocks on top of it to make sure that it doesn't fly off. And if there's any residual corn in the bottom of the feeder, we dump it out. And really, those simple things right there, if short of taking it and putting it in the barn, if you're going to leave it out in the field, just those really simple things right there can make all the difference in the world, Luke. It really, really can.
Paul, the paint job on the VINEYARDMAX feeders or any good quality feeder, I mean, it doesn't really hurt to leave it out there. It's not going to. I mean, it's protected. The metal is with a good paint job and all that. So, I like to leave feeders that I'm using out year round. I mean, I do. And I hunt. I actually use feeders after deer season for hogs a lot, and I've got 2. I have 2 feeders. I shot a hog with my big bore air gun 2 nights ago over a feeder about a half a mile from my home. So I would still leave that. And a lot of hunters are going to resonate with this too. They're going to think, well, yeah, now it's time to clean up these hogs. So I know I'm shifting gears away from deer hunting a little bit, but it all kind of goes hand in hand. I will still have that feeder going off just after daylight for 1 second. So it'll throw a little corn out there. Those deer that have been patterned, they expect it. So they'll come back. But then the next feeding, that's the morning for the deer. and then I'll throw another 1 second about an hour before dark, and that's for the deer. But then I'm concentrating on hogs, and I know most hogs are not going to be coming in daylight. They just hogs just move just before dark or after dark. It's just, we all know that. So I will set that feeder to go off about 15 minutes before dark. In other words, 15 minutes after sunset, whenever that changes this time of year, I'll have it going off for about 2 seconds. And that'll put a bunch of corn on the ground for those hogs, those nocturnal hogs, when they come out. And then I've learned to also, about an hour after dark, just in case the raccoons and all eats that corn up real quick, I throw another second of corn. So I'm still feeding quite a few seconds, maybe 5 seconds a day.
You're just spreading it out.
Yes,
right.
For the peak time that I expect to hunt, because I'm hunting at night with a thermal and a lot of times with a big bore air gun setting about 40 yards away. So
that is one of the great things too, Luke. You bring up an awesome point right there. That is one of the great things about the timer. It just provides such flexibility. You can add seconds, you can take seconds away, you can feed up to 6 times a day. You got all of these, it is really truly customized. You can customize it to your specific need and the way that you're hunting. And that's one of the things I love about that timer. I also like that timer has a 5-year warranty on it, and that also that timer is the easiest timer to program in the industry today. There is no doubt about it. We have tried all types of timers over the years. We have used all sorts of timers, and I will not put anything but the timer from Ultrimatic Feed and West Texas Feeder Supply on our feeders that we sell. I just won't do
it. Me either, Paul. And I've been using those components, if you will, for probably 20 years. I don't know how long. And when I discovered, I love the feeders, not only the game feeders that y'all make, but the fish feeders too. And we're going to tell folks how to find VINEYARDMAX in a little bit here. But yeah, coupled with those components, and then just say a barrel, for instance. Say you're feeding a 55-gallon barrel or whatever, using that. Holes, a lot of the ones in the past I've used, the holes are drilled in to put in components. You got holes in there. Well,
yeah,
they got a leak with that at some point, I would think.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, we all have to, there's really, on ours, we use self-tapping screws to put our motor assemblies on. And then we put a little bit of NP1 on there to make sure that it doesn't leak. But that's at the bottom of the feeder.
The bottom,
that's not that big a deal. My biggest concern, Luke, is what you do with the box itself. And there are so many, and I am not throwing a feeder manufacturer under the bus here, because there's a lot of great deer feeder manufacturers out there. But I'll tell you, at VINEYARDMAX, we do not put rivets in our feeders. We do not rivet our boxes or our storage component of our feed. We use barrels mostly, but the ones that are like our 1,300-pound capacity feeders, we use 14-gauge steel on those, and we weld everything. There is not a rivet on our feeders, because I have seen too many times where a seal will break on those rivets and water will go flooding into that thing, and then now you have got a mess on your hands. So that's something I believe that those two things are the most important part of a feeder. Number one, what components are you using? And equally as important is to not penetrate that barrel or the storage space with anything other than welding it. No rivets, none of that. Those are two very, very important parts of a feeder.
Exactly. I agree with you, Paul. Well, let's do this. Let's and I'm telling the VINEYARDMAX, I can't talk about Vineyard Max, folks, without mentioning the attractant. Actually, you know, in a lot of ranches, we can hunt deer through February, the managed lands ranches. And next week, next week I'm heading down to Sterling County with Larry Weissoon, and who you heard here every week on our show and Campfire Talk, out to his lease with Jeff Rice. We're going to do a late season hunt. If we didn't have Vineyard Max last year, that was really the icebreaker. But we used Vineyard Max away from feeding areas because the bucks had dominated those feeders. There were no doe. A doe would come around, the bucks were hot on their trail. The rut, by and large, was done, but those doe were shying away. We baited up areas, and we actually filmed. I shot one. We shot several, but one with a muzzleloader last year. So it's a grape-based attractant. I'll just mention this. And when you go to the Vineyard Max website, check it out. Deer are crazy about the smell of grapes. That's a fact. So, Paul, yeah.
And Luke, if you don't mind me kind of throwing in a plug here for Vineyard Max in a kind of a different way that we use it this time of the year. So as we are wrapping up deer season and we're moving into protein feeding, a lot of places do feed protein year round, but other places may be just starting a protein program. One bag of Vineyard Max, that grape-based attractant with the aroma and the palatability that it offers, one bag mixed with 2 bags of protein when you're starting a protein program works extremely well. Once the deer start coming into the protein, then you can back the Vineyard Max off and don't even have to use it anymore. Places that are using cottonseed, for example, want to feed cottonseed, have a very difficult time sometimes getting the deer acclimated and started on cottonseed. When they use Vineyard Max and mix it with the cottonseed and sprinkle it on the cottonseed, the deer will start eating that cottonseed, and then you can back the Vineyard Max off. I'm not suggesting that you have to use it all the time, but it is a great way to get the wildlife started on a protein.
For sure, Paul. I saw it over at our friend the Cotton's place on the cottonseed. They mix it in there, and they can smell it. They come up there. I know the deer say, this smells good. And then they start nibbling. Then they're on the cottonseed. We are out of time. Tell folks how to find Vineyard Max. There's dealers all over, but go to the website and they can learn a bunch there, can't they?
Yes, vineyardmax.net. And I also, Luke, would like to give the listeners out there my phone number if they have any questions about our feeders at all. And that is 936-205-0068. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank
Luke.
you, Paul, for sharing your feeder knowledge, and we'll get you back again and pick your brain a little bit more. How about that?
Thank you.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use. You can check them out online too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas. And VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I want to definitely thank all of our guests for sharing their little part of the outdoor world with us. We've got a little time left in today's show, and I thought I want to tell you a recipe. This little visit is going to morph into a tasty recipe here in a minute, but it starts out in the woods last week. I love to hunt wild hogs. If you listen to this show very much, you know that. And I happen to live in what I call the epicenter of wild hogdom. There's lots of hogs close to my house, which is not uncommon. There's lots of hogs all across the state of Texas and Oklahoma. But the weird thing is here I'm within about 25 miles of Dallas. I'm near the Trinity and the East Fork of the Trinity. There's a big wetlands out where I live, a big old 15,000-acre cattle ranch right here close to me. So there's a lot of hogs you can imagine. So I get to go. I've got a good buddy, Kenneth Shepard, and another one, Mr. Anderson. They're great friends. They own some land within a mile of me. So I've got stands up, and it's when I want to go hog hunting, I go. It's just a matter of, 15 minutes from my house, I'm setting in one of my hog hunting blinds in the wintertime. But I hunt them at night. They're pretty much nocturnal now. Hogs always, I probably kill more wild hogs the last 10 minutes of daylight, shooting light, than I have the rest of the time during the day, but occasionally they move during the daylight hours. But right now, I'm hunting them with the thermal scope. I use an AGM Global Vision, a Rattler is what I've been hunting with for a while. It's a great scope, but I do it a little different than most people. Here lately, I've been shooting them with an air gun, big bore air gun, and you're talking about a lot of fun, folks. Now, this is not like driving up on a field and spotting hogs out there 150, 200 yards and opening up with an AR. This is different. I do use corn feeders to kind of pull the hogs into a certain area. So I kind of, I'm not just out open field hunting. I'm looking at an area that I expect to see hogs. So I was out there last week, actually, honestly, about 4 nights ago. I settled in just before dark. I watched the sunset, and I try to get there about 30 minutes after sunset, get settled in. And the hogs moved about 30 minutes after it got good dark. So I had 4 boars come running. I've watched them and filmed all this through the thermal, which is kind of cool, through the Rattler scope. Saw them out there 200 yards. They were coming to a corn feeder. So they galloped in there one by one. You could see them jump under a fence. It was pretty cool video, and you can watch this too, by the way, on our TV show, A Sportsman's Life, on YouTube and Carbon TV. It's there now. So anyway, I shoot this boar. He probably weighs, 130 pounds maybe, fat as a seal, and he was in there about 35 yards, and I place the shots, whether I'm using a big bore air gun or whatever, right behind the jaw, try to center the neck, and they do not run when you hit them there. They go down. So I dropped this one right there at, within 35 yards, within 30 minutes of when I began hunting. So it was an easy hunt. But when I was sitting there in the stand, I was thinking about ways to cook the pork if I got some. That's just the way my brain works. I love to cook venison, wild pork, any kind of game meat, game birds. So this hunt was different because I was using this Seneca Dragon Claw tactical. It shoots one hard shot at a time, and the bullet is shooting a 336 grain bullet. So if you can equate all this together, that dropped that hog in its tracks and didn't mess up any meat. So before the hog came out, what's a new way to cook pork? I've cooked pork every way that I can imagine. I thought, I love hot wings, I thought, how about like hot wings out of pork? And I figured, how are we going to do that where it'll be tender? So I'm rolling all this around in my mind, waiting for the hogs, I thought, how about stripping up some backstrap, little pieces, you know, the size of a hot wing, size of a chicken wing maybe, you know. Stripping those up, clean all the sinew off, the fat, remove all that, and then put a little of that buffalo sauce in, not a lot, just kind of coat them on that, on those strips, put them in the refrigerator for a day or so, and let them kind of marinate in that. And then, you know, get rid of most of the moisture, dust those with flour, and deep fry them until they're done, which doesn't take long, as I discovered, because they're little thin strips of, you know, little pieces of pork. So I did that, and I'm going to tell you, this is it could be a full meal for people, but at camp, I don't think you have to marinate all that length of time. I just did because I didn't want to cook them right away when I stripped them up. But I took those after the next day, after they'd spent the night in the refrigerator, took those and drained, you know, the moisture off of them. You don't want them wet when you're battering them with flour, dusting them with flour. But I dusted them with flour, put them in some hot cooking oil, and fried them until they were crispy. Then I drained them. I put them on a little wire rack thing I've got. Let them drain, and then let them cool down. And that flour sticks to the meat, just like if you were making a chicken fried steak. Really, it's the same principle. And then I took, I'd already done this, of course. I took a stick of butter, and I used that, the buffalo sauce. You can buy a bottle of that, you know, and just, then you've got it. But you could use like Frank's hot sauce, Louisiana hot sauce, butter, a little garlic, and then you can make your own. But I used a stick of butter and a liberal amount of this sauce and it comes in a bottle there. There's all kind of different brands of buffalo sauce, but I just pour you some in there in that melted butter and I like to put a little extra garlic powder in there with it. Stir it all up, and then, now you don't want to just dredge these little pork pieces in that. You don't want to just soak them in it. Pour a little of that over a bowl full of those pork strips. And you got to have a name. I call this Buffalo Porkers. And as far as I'm concerned, I've invented this. I finally came up with a recipe I don't think anybody's tried. But anyway, so these fried little pieces of pork, don't float them in the sauce, but just coat them in that sauce. Don't turn them a whole heck of a lot, or you'll knock the batter off. I'm going to tell you, folks, that's some of the tastiest pork. I won't say it tastes like chicken buffalo wings. It doesn't. But I would always advise using the backstrap. I don't know how it would probably be a little too tough or chewy if you used ham meat. But I'll tell you, with that backstrap and those strips, that is something that you want to try it. So just remember, I guess you could just buy a bottle of that buffalo sauce and melt that with a little butter, and after you fry your little pieces of pork, well, we better call it the right name, Buffalo Porkers. That's what is officially called from now on. It's really good. Try that at camp. You can do it with venison for sure. I mean, you could, for that matter, you could do it with beef, probably round steak, but it's really, really good with wild pork. Folks, I tell you what, I have thoroughly enjoyed visiting with you. Again, thanks to everybody. Thanks to all of our radio stations across the Texas, Oklahoma, on up into Arkansas and other places too. Some of the stations scattered out that run our show. I really do appreciate it. There's all kind of outdoor shows that these stations could run. And granted, we're not professional. I've been doing this 18 years, but I still don't consider myself a, quote, radio man. I just know I've learned a good bit about the outdoors, and I have a lot of friends that are very knowledgeable. So that's the kind of guest I get. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, I'll welcome you, and I'll tell you how to do it. Go to the website, catfishradio.org, catfishradio.org, and you email Luke. Send me an email. Give me your phone number. I'll call you up, and we'll see if what you have to share is something that we might want to put on the radio. For right now, though, I am told we are out of time. Thank you a lot for being with us, friends. Tune in next week. We'll have some more fun talking hunting and fishing. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.